What's going on, guys? 2015 F150 3.5 EcoBoost. What we're looking at here is my old manifolds, and there's one that broke on me, just FYI, but I got some CR Performance manifolds, which are larger, and the output here is larger, which matches the turbocharger, I guess, diameter right there. But yeah, when you put them side by side, you definitely see a difference. These things are pretty puny compared to the new CR Performance ones. So there's some great videos out there on YouTube that show you step by step how to do this. I'm just going to do an overview, and I'll let you know kind of what I ran into. Definitely need a couple socket sets here. I had a large one and a smaller one, and I used both of them together and parts and pieces from each one. Like, for instance, there's a 13 millimeter that is just too large on this one, but this one is a little bit smaller, so I was able to use that. Miscellaneous flat bars, something for a cheater bar, some wrenches. Just, make sure you got a full tool set when you're gonna tackle this job. And I would plan on a weekend to do it. It took me, I'd say, around the 10-hour mark, and that's just because I was taking my time and had the wife yelling at me and stuff, so I had to stop here and there. But as long as you take your time, try not to bust up your knuckles too much. But I will say, if you do have the option, try to take your downpipe off, because it does get in the way a little bit when you're putting the turbocharger back on. Overall, wasn't too bad. That's the one that I showed you. One of them broke. It's on the passenger side, but they were pretty tight. So I had, multiple extensions out of here with my cheater bar kind of torquing on it. My PB blaster took a shit, so I was using WD-40 to spray everything down to loosen it up. Make sure you do that. I guess from the start, take out the wheel well liner. Definitely take out your intake, your hot and cold side pipes for the turbocharger. Get those out of your way. You're going to need as much room as you can. These are your water lines. There's one that goes in here. These are kind of a bitch. There's a little pick. I just used a small flathead, or you can use a pick to pull that little clip inside there. This is metal, so it's you kind of got to maneuver it to pop it out. If you didn't drain your coolant, what I did is I just popped that line off, and it's going to come out of the bottom, not the hose, but the bottom of the turbocharger. And I just put a bucket underneath here, and most of it fell into that bucket. So that's how I drain my coolant, but you're definitely going to do it. And when you do pop that, make sure you got like safety glasses on so you don't get splashed in the eyes. You got your oil line down there. This is a T45 Torx. Those three, and then the two for the oil line down there. Oil line is stationary, so you just need to back the bolts out. There's a gasket between the turbocharger and the oil line, so that was easy to remove. You'll when you get in here, it's kind of tight, but you can do it. Like I said, you'll need miscellaneous socket wrenches. If you got small ones, make sure you got some torque wrenches too, to make sure you're torquing it to spec. Can't really see, but there it is. There, CR exhaust manifold. I'm doing this because, I figure around 100,000 miles or so, it's probably going to need it, or 150, whenever. I just, hear some horror stories, but I don't run my truck like a mad dog. My truck's got 60,000 miles on it right now, and I figured, why the hell not? Because I plan on keeping this truck as long as it lives. So really over here, this is the driver's side. Not too bad. Like I said, get your hot, cold side tubes out of the way there. And everything else is for the most part fairly straightforward. You're gonna have a little trouble with the water lines just because they're kind of tight. I would recommend getting a pick. I just didn't have one. Like I said, I used a small flathead and it was kind of a son of a gun. But be careful with those water lines. I ended up not replacing the O-rings. You could, I think these fittings are probably like 20 bucks each, so I was like, eh. But if you can't, if you know, it's always good to, you know, I figured 60,000 miles are probably still good. But if you're doing this, might as well go ahead and do it. What I did is I put a little marine grease on the actual tube and inside the fitting to make sure that it goes in and out, or back in, I should say, easier. Other than that, I'd say probably start on the driver's side. I think the passenger side was a little bit more complex, but removing it was fairly easy, but putting it back in, I was fighting my downpipe, and it was just kind of hard to, you know, I can't really pry it out of the way, so I had to fight it a little bit with the water line, lining the water line up and lining this back up. So make sure when you're, if you know, can pry it back a little bit, make sure you line this up, kind of line everything up before you start tightening everything down. And I recommend making sure that water line in the back is pushed in first, then kind of get the bolts in for your oil line, and then start one or two of these that hold the turbo to the manifold, and then bolt up your downpipe, because again, you don't want the downpipe to manipulate the turbocharger before you seat everything else. So let's go to the passenger side. Check it out. Like I said, just go ahead and get all these, all your hot and cold side piping out of the way there, so you're not fighting it. So this one, this side, you're gonna have to remove the starter down there, which is easy, really easy. There's a nut right here, and then two bolts right here and here. Drop the starter, and that lets you get access to your oil line down there. This water line on the back of this one was, to me, just more of a pain in the ass than the other one. Also, this water line, it was kind of in the way, so I had to kind of manipulate it out of my way. And this is metal, so you can, you know, somewhat bend it out of your way, but I kind of had trouble pushing it down in. It's not like a straight up 90 where you can just, you know, jam it down in there. So I recommend putting a little bit of grease on this and inside that to you know, make sure it seats in there. But this one, you know, just the way the pipes are, this one I didn't remove completely, I just removed the boot. But it seems like this is more in the way to get to those bolts, so I had more of a fun time pulling the manifold bolts out. And you can see there's my replacement bolt that I just had laying around for the one that sheared off. So definitely oil everything down, but these were kind of a son of a gun, so make sure maybe pick up 2 Torx 45s just in case for whatever reason your tip breaks. But mine didn't, I just had a bolt break. But it's always good to have a spare. Oil line, same thing. And if you can, again, get the downpipe out of your way. It'll make the job a little bit quicker. The more stuff you can get out of your way, the better the job will be. This is definitely doable. If I didn't have my wife yelling at me the whole time to stop working on my truck, I think it would have been a little bit better of a job. But overall, pretty happy doing it myself. You know, I was kind of intimidated to do this. I didn't want to mess anything up, but take your time. It's pretty straightforward. The studs, they come out easy. The nuts on the manifold, they come out easy. You know, just soak everything down with some penetrating oil. They should come out easy. Just take some time. Multiple socket wrenches, different kind of sets. But other than that, everything was pretty straightforward. And just wanted to point out, you know, if you can take care of the downpipe and get everything out of your way, should come off, and you should be able to swap them out no problem if you guys want to do it yourself. not really seeing any other concerns. I mean, get that out of your way. This pulls off. Make sure you get all your gaskets. I did not replace the gasket on my, because I have an SPD turbo adapter. I did that in another video, so that's a new gasket. You don't have to pull that off, but if you are doing this job, definitely throw the SPD turbo adapters on there to get the most out of this. I did replace this gasket between the turbo and the manifold, and obviously new exhaust manifold gaskets. That's most important. Yep, so that's about it. You know, I showed you how I did my coolant. It's not the best way, but if you can find that drain hose or peacock or whatever the hell it's called, do it that way. But I just ended up, I said, man, if I pull this, let me see what happens. So once you pull it, and I only did it on the other side over there, obviously, to drain it, but once you pull it, if it starts going everywhere and you can't, you know, catch it, put the hose just right back in and it'll stop. So get a, you know, I had a bucket down here to catch it, and I caught, you know, 80% of it. So I was able to reuse most of it, and that's okay because I can put, you know, new coolant back in. Not gonna hurt the truck. It's actually good for it. So let me think here. It's a good idea to disconnect the battery before you start, obviously, but everything else up top, you know, really just removing these helped. And while you're doing this, if you haven't done the Big 3 battery upgrade, when you remove those tubes and kind of have all this access, if you want to do that Big 3 like I was talking about, this once you remove all this stuff, it gives you plenty of access to get to the alternator, so you can throw that cable on there and get it to your battery. I did the grounds previously, but I could not reach the alternator without taking it apart, so I waited for this. Good access to your headlight if you want to throw in some LED bulbs. This would be the time to do it. Also, radiator hose right there. I don't know where that other drain hose is, but you know, you can do it using my method if you want. Other than that, hope this video helps for the do-it-yourselfers that might want to try it. Really wish Ford would have used these manifolds or something to, you know, a little bit like this from OEM, because again, comparing the two, it's no comparison. These things are, they look like they flow so much better than the OEMs. So I'm excited to test it out here in the future. I'm gonna give it a week to kind of break in, make sure everything's nice and seated, and before I, you know, get on it a little bit. So when you finish this job, you know, I check for leaks before you start putting everything back together. I also drained my oil and changed my oil, I should say. So I waited, you know, until it was time to do that, so I had no oil in the truck, and then did the coolant to make sure, you know, there wasn't stuff leaking out when I was taking apart this. So, you know, that's a good opportunity, or good time to do it. Whenever you're ready for an oil change, you can just, you know, drain your oil and leave it out of your engine while you're doing this. But other than that, that's really it. Not too much trouble, just kind of tedious, time consuming a little bit. Hope you guys find this video a little bit useful. It's not the best. I didn't want to film it the whole time I was taking it apart, but if it helps, it helps. If it doesn't, it doesn't. There's some other good videos on there that do kind of a step-by-step, you know, replacing these manifolds. So mine was just kind of an overview, and I kind of watched that video a couple times and pretty much followed it to a T. They do come with instructions. I didn't really care for the instructions except for the pattern at which you torque down the exhaust manifold. You know, it tells you the foot-pounds and all that, what to torque them to, so pay attention to that. But yeah, if you guys got any more questions, man, let me know. I think this is pretty much one of the last mods I'm going to do up here. Really, in the future, it's just going to be messing with the rear end. You know, throwing a nice rear end in it with some probably 331 gears. That's in the future, but or 373 gears is what I was looking at. I got 315s in there right now. I think that's kind of my last bottleneck on this truck before it's rocket ship. But yeah, again, hope this video helps. If you guys got more questions, let me know. Thanks.